Hi, everyone. Welcome to Comic-Con at Home. My name is Andrew Farago, and I'm the curator of San Francisco's Cartoon Art Museum. And it's my pleasure today to host a discussion with some of my favorite cartoonists, graphic novelists, kids comics creators. And our panel is called Comics Made Me Who I Am Today, kids graphic novelists and their influences. So joining me today are Nidhi Chanani, whose credits include the graphic novels Pashmina and Jukebox. Jerry Kraft, award-winning creator of the graphic novels New Kid and Class Act. Betsy Peterschmidt, a 10-year comics veteran whose debut graphic novel, Amelia Erroway, Castaway Commander, is in stores next month. Dana Simpson, syndicated comic strip artist and creator of Phoebe and Her Unicorn, whose collected editions are popular favorites at school libraries everywhere. And that can be said of Judd Winick, who's the creator of the best-selling Hilo graphic novel series. So, hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together, Andrew. We're excited.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So I want to talk with let's go back to the very beginning. So, what are the first comics that you remember reading, and were you reading yet when you saw your first comics?
Why don't you call on us to start, so we're not jumping in. We'll warm up to the whole thing. You got to be in charge.
Right now, we're being overly polite. So
Yeah.
Exactly, which we hate. So
It changed real fast.
So I'll go with the order you show up on my screen here. So I'll start with Jerry.
Okay. So I feel like I went from like Dr. Seuss right to Spider-Man and the Silver Surfer. You know, I was always a big Marvel guy, but I also really love comic strips. So getting the Sunday Funnies was a big thing to get, like Broomhilder and Hager the Horrible and Peanuts, and then later on like Calvin and Hobbes, then going back in time and finding like Pogo and Tiger and things like that. I actually didn't like to read much else, but besides that, and I still have all my Marvel comics, about 5,000 of them, about 10 feet from where I am. So yes, so comics really did make me a reader, and it was a long time before actual so-called real books made me a reader. So I had a lot of catching up to do afterwards.
Okay, and we'll go with Dana next.
I have a feeling Peanuts is going to come up a lot. Doesn't Peanuts just always come up a lot? My mom had this Peanuts treasury. And she had it from when she was a kid. I think it was from the 60s. And I remember discovering that we had this item in the house when I was pretty young, like preschool age, and just devouring it and being completely fascinated by it, and reading it cover to cover. And I started trying to draw my own comics, mostly on that and on like the Sunday Funnies that were around at the time, Garfield and what have you, whatever was around in the early 80s. Oh no, I just said my age. And yeah, I drew my first comic strip when I was 5, and I was basically just like trying to make something like that. So I was sort of sucked in pretty young. Comic strips were kind of just my destiny, I guess. Thanks, Mom.
All right, Judd, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to agree with everyone else. Comic strips and comic books for me as a little budding cartoonist went hand in hand, except I think mentally and emotionally I put them on like different tracks. Like the first thing I really remember like falling in love with was Garfield, which I am old enough here that I can actually remember when it first came out, and it wasn't even in my local paper. My folks, I think, got me. I know they did. They got me the second Garfield collection, Garfield at Large. I think it's the blue one. I have it here behind this crap show behind me. I'm not gonna go find it. Literally the actual one, and I just fell in love with it. I mean, I read it over and over and over and over again. I probably learned how to draw by copying Garfield. That was sort of my first love. Comic books were a different track completely, mentally too. No, that's X-Men and that's Spider-Man over here. And that's stuff I read and love. And this is the stuff that I want to do someday, even as a kid. I mean, I I looked at Garfield and thought I could do that. I didn't look at X-Men and think I could do that. But it was kind of a solitary thing though. I read superhero comics like on my own. I don't think I ever talked about. I think I might have, like in high school, finally ran into someone who read comic books. Whereas comic strips kind of belong to the world, you know. Talked to my parents about it, my grandparents about it, friends, whatnot. Everybody did it. It was sort of a different thing. Those are just but a few.
You should have called me.
We can find each other now. That's
yes, exactly.
All right. How about Betsy? How about you?
Well, what you guys have said so far, like I really resonate with. Like I actually had a phase when I was a kid, the Garfield phase, where all of my characters had the giant eyes. And the only problem with that is they don't have foreheads. So like there's really limited expression, like no offense to Jim Davis, of course, but so actually my mom was a cartoonist in the 80s. She actually was a chairperson for the Cartoon Art Museum for a while. Yeah. And so she, you know, ever since a young age was always really encouraging of this. So she was always like, guys, check out these books, you know, check out these comics and comic strips. Same, I'm just going to jump on the bandwagon here. It was the same thing for me, you know, mine, Peanuts, definitely, but also fellow Minnesotan. But more than anything, really, I think Calvin and Hobbes was like my biggest influence growing up. I didn't understand a lot of the like extremely, like I didn't know that Calvin and Hobbes are based off of like, you know, historical figures, like I didn't understand like all of the like philosophical stuff that was going on, but as a kid and like reading, like seeing the illustrations and just how well Watterson like tells a story with just images, that was it, you know, like that I was hooked, you know, from an early age. And I think that's one reason why I love wordless comics so much too, you know. But no, that stuff is like, I actually have the complete collection here. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like a 45-pound brick.
They sent it to me when I signed my development contract. Andrews McNeil sent that to me with a note saying, Dana, here's the complete Calvin Hobbes. John Glenn included a note warning me not to injure my back.
Yeah, lift with your knees. Is it your knees? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think
lift with your knees. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good. I must have done it right because my back's fine.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
And you know, The Far Side was another one that was just made me jealous that someone could be so hysterically funny every single day.
And I remember, and I when Jerry and I, as the elder statesmen of the group, we can probably as a kid, I remember thinking like he doesn't draw so great. Like, you know, I remember looking at it and like, yeah, he draws okay, but oh man, it was funny, it was weird, and everybody loved it. I mean, that was the thing that struck me about The Far Side. I remember noting that it wasn't just like cartoony people or nerdy people or whatever. Everybody loved The Far Side. And how unbelievably universal it was, and still is. You know,
yeah. Well, like the one where it's like the Institute for the Gifted or something, and then there's just a guy putting his full weight on the door and it says pull. And what's so good about that is it's like, it's not just he's trying, like he's been at this for a long time and he's giving up. Brilliant.
And you know what's so funny is a lot of those classics, like, it really wasn't about the art, with the exception of Calvin and Hobbes, because after that was like Dilbert, and Dilbert was very simplistic, but that was the other one that just kind of took over everything. So every once in a while, it'd just go one big strip, and then it was like, what's the next one?
Yeah. No, and I mean, I think we all keep coming back to Peanuts because Sparky Schultz could draw. I mean, he could really draw, and actually, he was making decisions with Peanuts to keep it simpler.
Yep.
You know, like this is what the story, you know, that I'm telling needs. We're gonna keep it simple, or keep it clean, and keep it small. I mean, there's a couple, and Andrew could attest to this. I saw this one week he did where Lucy throws Schroeder's piano into a ravine, and it's weird because he actually messes with perspective finally. Like you can really get a good shot of the ravine, and there's like a lot of business going on, which I mean, honestly, I saw this like 2 years ago for the first time. And I was like, oh, he draws even better than I imagined. You know, there's a lot more there. I mean, it's really interesting how a lot of times storytelling is making those decisions to do less, you know, and only as adults we realize that now. Only as professionals do you look at that now and go like, oh no, I don't need all this backgrounds.
Yeah.
You know, something I should have mentioned but didn't was that I was a huge Bloom County fan as a kid.
Ooh.
Like, I was too young for Bloom County, by most people's estimation. I was like, you know, my age had one digit. I was not a big politics follower yet, but I learned so much from it. Like, I'd be reading Bloom County and be like, Mom, who's Tip O'Neill? Mom, who's Jesse Jackson? Mom, who's Andy Kaufman? She didn't know that one. I had to find that one out myself. But it was like reading something that was just a little bit over my head was really fun for me because I felt like I got to learn things. And I don't do politics and Phoebe and Her Unicorn, but I think what I took from that is not to talk down to kids, not to worry, are they going to know this? Because it'll be fun for them if they don't.
100% agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, what was so cool is I got to work at King Features for like 8 years. So I got to see, Mort Walker and Ray Billingsley and all these people come in to the office and, had them send in all the artwork. So I got to like really look at this and all the books and go to like the Rubin Awards and meeting Charles Schultz, talking to Lynn Johnston, which it was like, just like starstruck. But that was a really cool benefit of that job.
Oh yeah,
that's cool. Wait, we haven't heard
We'll
from Nidhi yet.
Nidhi
we
take
haven't
it.
heard from Nidhi yet.
Yeah.
Nidhi, tell us.
I'm just enjoying.
Don't be polite. Jump in here. Jump in here.
Well, I mean, everybody already kind of covered Garfield, but growing up in, as a child of immigrants, my comics exposure was pretty limited. It was always the funnies. And the thing that our entire family kind of understood was Garfield. But I still think about it to this day that nobody knew how to pronounce lasagna. So I think my mom said it for the first time. And then from that point forward, we all said lasagna. And we didn't know what it was, and we didn't understand why he was sleeping in the dish. But I still think about how it was so effective, right? Like, even though we didn't know what it was, we still found it so funny. And even now, like, so I think about Garfield a lot because I still call it lasagna because I think it's so funny. It's like that thing, I mean, it's very much what kids do when they're not familiar with a word. You just sound it out, and then that becomes like, I think that word in my head, how to pronounce it wrong first, still, because that's how we all pronounced it in my family. So Garfield has like a big, soft spot in my heart because of that.
Do you remember the first moment that somebody corrected you and they're like, actually, it's lasagna? Like, do you recall that? Because that must have been like oh my gosh, you guys, we've been saying it wrong.
I feel like I was in college before I heard somebody say it because we didn't eat it. Right.
Oh my gosh,
right. We went to Olive Garden, I mean, we didn't know Italian food, which is ironic because I'm married to an Italian American. So I think I probably heard somebody say it and thought, I don't know if I made the connection that I had been saying it wrong because I probably thought it was a whole different word.
Right. Which makes sense. Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. So relatable. I remember the first time I played Ocarina of Time, I pronounced it Ocarina of Time. And friends were like, what are you talking about?
Oh, I remember having a conversation with another kid about Sonic the Hedgehog and him going on and on about the Cheos emeralds. and never correcting him, which I don't know why.
Because there's just something special about that. It's like, that word is it belongs to each of us in our own special way, right?
Yeah, it's when your internal life becomes your external life, and sometimes like, no, I'm gonna keep that. I know it's wrong, but it's mine. So
yeah.
I can't tell you how many acai bowls I ordered because those berries are supposedly really healthy for you.
Yep. Yeah, I just learned 2 years ago that minestrone is not pronounced milestone. Hate to break it to all of you if you also thought this. Which I think I have some, I definitely was a reluctant reader growing up, and I'd scramble the letters in between the first and the last words. So if you look at minestrone, I mean, I don't know, look at minestrone and come back to me and let me know what you think.
Yeah, were you guys readers? Because I wasn't.
I was a big reader.
Were
Very
you?
big reader. Yeah. I'm still like averaging 60 to 80 books a year. And
Whoa, that's amazing.
That is a
definitely-
lot of books.
yeah, I think it's partly because like, so I had a lot going on as a kid, and reading was my escape. It was my comfort. But it took me a long time to come to comics. And now I feel like, you know, my 60 and 80 is like, kind of like, I can probably extend that because, you know, reading prose takes a lot longer than reading comics.
Indeed.
But then because I love them and because I make them, I end up reading the same, all these, you know, I read them like over and over and over again.
She just read those this morning, so.
I did.
In between frames of the,
Right,
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't come from a book household. My folks were, in hindsight, were kind of like news hounds. Like we got like four newspapers, and there was like magazines everywhere. They were always reading, but I don't think I read a book for pleasure until I was like 13 or 14. But I read comics like crazy, and I read, you know, comic strips and comic strip collections all the time. So it was this. I mean, it's funny. This conversation only came up when I started doing school visits, and kids ask, "What was your favorite book when you were a kid?" It's like, I'm gonna have to lie, or I'm gonna have to tell them that's either like Bloom County Loose Tales or you know, Garfield Gains Weight. That's right, and so that's what I told them. It's like yeah, no, I don't really have one, but I'll prepare next time and give you some recommendations. And I have found this a lot with like a lot of us that you know, there was in some cases a lot like not a diet of prose until later. And we wound up okay. It's not necessarily the way that, you know, we should go. I always tell, you know, the youngsters, do both graphic novels and prose. You know, and hopefully you're not getting into those fights with debates with some older folks about that, you know, graphic novels are not books. You know, and I think actually, Nidhi, you pointed out, this is one of my biggest points about graphic novels is that they get a bad rap because you can read them so quickly. You know, we all do it, and like, yeah, that's 2 years of work that you just plowed through in an hour. You know,
That's fine.
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I know Magic Treehouse is taking you a lot longer, but whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, just look at this. Like, I mean, I'm just gonna pull Betsy's, but look at this, it's so beautiful, right? I will read this, but then I'll go back. I'm sure kids do the same thing. I'm very much like a kid. I'll go back and I'll just look at the art, right? And I think that's when a magical thing about making comics and being in kind of like this little club that we're in, you know, is that we know that kids are reading these books over and over and over again.
Oh yeah.
Whereas a prose book, you might read it twice in your life, but I don't know if they're going to read it the sheer number of times they're going to read a graphic novel.
True.
You're
Do
absolutely
people ever
right.
say, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
I'll
go
just talk over you, Jerry. Well, do people ever say to you guys, like, thank you, my kid wasn't a reader till they picked up your book and they read your stuff, and then that got them into real books? And like, I never know quite what to say when someone puts it like that.
Yeah,
Like,
because they're phrasing it like a compliment.
yeah, like
right.
you're welcome. I don't know you, so I'm not gonna argue with you about the validity of my art form. I'm just glad I can help.
Right. It's like, you know, my kid ate blueberry donuts for years, and you introduced him to real fruit.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
Go ahead.
it's like they treat it like a gateway drug, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. And you know, if people, I do hear that graphic novels are a way for reluctant readers to get into reading, which kind of says to me that maybe they were reluctant because you were discouraging them from reading the kind of stuff that they're actually
To
interested
begin
in.
with.
Yep.
Yes. 100% agree.
Such a good point, Dana.
Your points are solid today.
I feel good about myself.
My teachers confiscated comic books.
Seriously?
So I literally
What?
did not pick up my first prose book to read for enjoyment until I was like 26. Now
Wow.
I could read a book on how to do Adobe Photoshop or how to self-publish, like an 800-page book, but to sit down with like, hey, I'm going to read a book for enjoyment, that did not happen until I was a grown man.
One time when I was
Yeah.
8, I pretended to go to sleep and then stayed up till 4 a.m. reading Beowulf under the covers with a flashlight. I was more like Nidhi. I was a reader kid. I'm not as much of a reader now. Like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the adult world with its distractions. Maybe I'm too busy scrolling social media and whatever it is that I'm doing with my time now. Where is it going? I feel like I still read books sometimes, but 60 a year. I'm lucky if I hit 10.
I mean, I was going to say it's because you read all the content already. There's nothing left to read.
Yeah,
you read
I
every
read
book
it all
in existence.
in the middle of the night with a flashlight.
Yeah.
And this is true. I really wanted to wear glasses and I didn't need them yet as a kid. So I was hoping that reading in poor light would ruin my eyes.
Is that a myth? Because my partner keeps saying that's a myth and I'm not convinced. I like, yeah.
I did eventually start wearing glasses, but both my parents do. So I think that's inconclusive.
Yeah, no, it might be one of those things where, like, you read in bad light and then eventually need glasses. But if you also wore a cowboy hat while reading in bad light, you might need glasses. They're never going to know because it's not
Correlation
exactly
is
a
not
study.
causation.
It's always
There's
the
not really
cowboy
maybe a
hat.
correlation. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But I will say, Dana, going back to your point about the grown-ups, I think I've learned in my years of doing this that I don't really care so much about the grown-ups. When a parent is saying exactly that my kid never read anything and then picked up your books and now they're finally reading prose, and sort of like not even circling back to saying that, like, and comics and reading in general and falling in love with storytelling, they don't do that. I'm mostly like, yeah, I don't care what you think because your kid's reading and that's what's important.
That's what
and they're going to read
matters.
graphic
That's a
novels
very
for
good
the
point.
rest of their lives. They're going to be
Exactly.
reading cartoons. So
Right.
got them. And we know why they're going to read comic books and graphic novels and cartoons because they're awesome.
Because
And
those things are great. Yeah.
It's words and pictures. They're so much more accessible. I mean, a kid is a reluctant reader. Will look at a book of prose and feel a little bit cowed because you got an ocean of words to go through. Whereas, they look at a comic book or graphic novel, they're inviting. They know that it's the pictures, man.
Yep.
I mean, we don't have to, dissect this too much. And it scaffolds their way through the story. And eventually they fall in love with stories.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily about the reading. And they'll be able to like tough it out and read
about
prose,
stories.
which seemed kind of overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
And we as cartoonists are slowly getting a little bit more credit as, the ones who bring in the reluctant readers, and as well as, kids who are avid readers also enjoying our stuff because, it's not all whatever crap talk you want to say about whatever particular cartoon book. Like, it's not all these crappy ones. Like, you guys do important stories. Like, thank you. They're all kind of important stories. Yeah, but thank you.
Yeah.
It's go ahead, Betsy.
Oh, I was just gonna say to also build off of what Nidhi was saying earlier about, comics. Like, I know it takes a lot less time for you to read them, but you reread them because
Yes.
cartoonists sprinkle things in to the visuals that you don't have when you're reading prose. I'm not here to diss on prose. I'm not here to diss on prose. But something that I have always been frustrated with, and I actually, to be totally honest, you guys are like, oh yeah, I didn't start reading until 26. I don't know if I ever started reading. I just went straight to audiobooks because I was, oh my gosh, I am saying such a scandalous thing right now. But yeah, I just went straight to audiobooks because, like, I'm working anyway. I listen, but anyway, I digress.
I got in trouble once with like some people online for saying something that I thought was, I didn't even say it. I think I phrased it as a question. Am I allowed to say I've read something if I've listened to the audiobook of it? I did not think this would be a controversial thing to say, but I had at least one person like temporarily make me the villain of Twitter for him that day for saying this. They're like, this is an author saying this. Oh, how scandalous. Like,
You're consuming the story, and it's
And research actually shows that audiobooks and like actually reading are basically equal, the comprehension, everything. I was reading about it because I wanted, like Betsy, I wanted to be able to listen to books while I was drawing, and it just didn't work for me because I guess this is like a boast. I'm not trying to boast, but I read faster than I can hear a book. And so I was getting really frustrated. I was listening to a Neil Gaiman book and I was like, God, this is so slow. And so I tweeted about it. And then all these people, it was kind of amazing to read about how audiobooks, because I didn't really know a lot about it, but it's basically the same thing. So I think discounting any kind of reading, whether it's comics, audiobooks, is just like not working for us. We should
there's
be
no
like,
better way to
past
put
that.
somebody off of reading than to tell them they're doing it wrong.
well, yes, exactly. And also, what about folks that are blind or are visually like? That is another. You're giving more people opportunity to consume your story, and that's a beautiful thing. Why wouldn't you want that?
Yeah, see, I'd rather read a graphic novel, but I love listening to the audiobooks while I work. The problem that I have now is that when people ask me to do a cover blurb and they send me this like 300-page manuscript, I'm like, oh my goodness, when am I going to have time to do this? I'm like, it's not that I don't want to, but that will take the place of 3 days worth of work.
Yeah, it's a big investment of time. And what if you do that and then you don't like it enough to blurb it?
Right. Exactly.
Your blurb is, this is a book.
Yes.
This certainly took up a whole bunch of my time.
I won't lie. I've punted even reading a few things where it's like, yeah, I wanted to send you this book, this author. Is it a graphic novel or is it prose? Like, oh no, it's prose. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have time to do that.
Hey, can they call and read me 10 pages a day? Their book, I could handle that.
Yeah, it's like I kind of read at night, and I usually fall asleep reading it. And sometimes I have to reread the last 10 pages I read anyway.
Yes.
I just like a comic, man. I'll be fine. Send that over. I'll read that.
Just say so. Send me all of them.
Yeah, give me. I've got 4 PDFs sitting in my iPad right now that I'm gonna read the blurb. I'm putting in air quotes. I'm gonna read them. I am gonna read them. But the blurb, whereas it's just different. I think circling back. Yeah, we lose the speed race. Our graphic novels go through them fast, but I agree. Young readers are not going to come in like, hey, so I highlighted this paragraph of Charlotte's Web that really spoke to me. I just wanted to show you all. Whereas how often do kids, and us as kids, would point out a panel or a drawing or a moment and go, look at that, And we have the advantage that prose doesn't, where some of the story is a little more thought-provoking because sometimes we drop all the dialogue, we drop all the captions, and it's just visual. And sometimes our characters are thinking. You've all done this. Every one of you've done it. I've read all your stuff, and many times you have characters who are just looking at something, and you don't know what they're saying. You don't know what they're saying, on the inside, and it means our readers have to think about it.
Yeah.
And that's. It's the power and the fun of visual storytelling.
Yeah.
And when a kid or two has asked me like, what was going on here? It's like, I don't want to tell you.
That's your interpretation, right?
Yeah.
It's for you to interpret.
That's kind of one of that's my favorite thing is when a kid comes up and there's like this one panel in Pashmina, which multiple kids have asked me about. And it's the main character and she has like hearts around her face and she's talking to her teacher. And they're like, okay, we have a debate. Does she have a crush on her teacher or not? And just like knowing that there's no other place where that happens, right? It's just this one panel and they just need to know. And that's just wonderful. It's beautiful because they are really paying attention, right? They're really, like,
you've got the right audience.
Right. Yeah.
Nidhi, I also need to know, so I'm going to call you when we're done.
Something about something that I really, when I was working on Amelia, I knew I didn't want to have like the thought bubbles I really wanted the characters' emotions and like, you know, the pauses and the pacing and the panels and all of that to speak for itself, and like exactly what you said, Judd, just like people interpret it, you know. And I actually, my publisher a few times, or my editor a few times was like, you need to add a little dialogue here, just to like, because if I could, I would have not put any dialogue in it, which I'm sure people would have been like, what? But I just think there's so much to be said about those moments where there are no words, you know, and it's what a beautiful way to do it in comics and graphic novels, you know.
It is the only place. I mean, you know, I mean, really, even with television and motion pictures, you know, they pick an angle, they stay a little bit longer. They're controlling the pace, I guess is what I'm saying. And they might add music to cheat, you know, if they want to let you know, like this, you hear how
What
goofy
you
the music
should
is,
feel.
do not be scared.
This is a joke.
And if you're, we're having a little fun here, but you know, we are the only ones that get to do it in that way. It's like, no, just this, and you have to figure it out or you don't. And it's up to our editors to sometimes chime in like, you're being far too subtle. You gotta, you just gotta give us just a little bit more here. Like, well, all right, I'll have someone say something, but okay, kind of ruins it. Kind of ruins the art of it. I'm just saying.
I actually don't think my editor has ever told me I was using too few words.
Who's your editor?
You know what? You know her? She's good. She tells me to say fewer things. It's made me a
Show
tighter writer.
don't tell, right? Yeah.
I'm usually getting it when I'm joking a joke, when it's like, you know, I have 5 panels of the same joke going on and on. Like, I think we got it. I think we got it. Maybe we can wrap it up over here in this panel. I do have like an upcoming book. There's this huge like 4-page joke involving frogs, toads, excuse me. And she actually wanted me to cut it. I said, I can't bring myself to do it. I just can't. It's like, I love it too much. It's like, I'll kill all the other babies, but this, I gotta have these 4 pages with the toads. It's just too funny for me.
I'm really looking.
You're not wrong.
forward
Show
to
your
that.
children.
Yeah.
I'm right. Tell me.
Yeah, I really want to read this.
I really can't wait to read it, Judd. I love your jokes. I'm always like, you know, Dana's and your books, I'm always laughing, and it's just so wonderful. I just like that, the ability to like sit with a book, right, and have it make you laugh. I mean, same with Jerry, right? Like, there's so many jokes. I have a lot of envy for people who are funny.
See, I think that
no
came
other
from
usable skills.
I think that came from me doing comic strips, because I did a comic strip called Mama's Boys for like 20 years.
Right.
And I was always used to panel joke, panel joke, panel joke. So even doing a graphic novel now, I don't feel like I can go but so many panels without a joke, or else it feels kind of empty, I guess.
The rhythm feels wrong, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as a result, there's like a lot of jokes in there, and it doesn't feel the same unless I'm having some kind of like witty banter going on.
I have like a big setup joke in Jukebox, and a friend of mine, early reader, wrote me and she said, I laughed out loud at this and I didn't know you had it in you. And I was like, yes.
Wow.
I did it. You know, it's like so exciting.
Love that.
Some of the later Phoebe, some of the later Phoebe books are not comic strip collections. They're like graphic novels that I wrote as graphic novels, and the pressure not to have to be funny every 4th panel was nice.
Yeah.
But then I get reviews be like, these ones aren't as funny as the others. Like, yeah, I know. I'm telling a story here.
I need to tell a narrative.
What are you reading reviews for, Dana? What are you doing?
I stopped.
What are you doing?
I eventually stopped. I haven't read a review in so long yet. But when you start out, you read all your reviews. It's like just cool that there are some.
That's true. I wrote superhero comics for 12 years. So I stopped listening to people a long time ago. It's just not healthy.
Is this a thing that is, because this is my first everything. This is my first panel. This is my first book. This is my first everything. Do you not read reviews? You just don't do that? Is that like a rule that everyone follows? Kind of.
Try not to go down the rabbit hole. You know,
Okay.
try not to. You know that old story about the it's a concert pianist who like sells out theater after theater. It's not an empty seat. And then one night he actually looks up and sees an empty seat up there and he obsesses on it. it's the same thing. Look at the good reviews and you'll see a couple of blips and bumps in the road. Don't focus on them and wonder if they're right. Don't get too crazy. You gotta go with your gut. And I'm old enough to remember before there was an internet, when it was like, so the word came in from wherever. It didn't. Now, instantly, people can tell you if you suck. And conversely, they can tell you if you're wonderful. So plus minus, you kind of want to know. I mean, if you're getting a vibe where it's like, people really didn't like this one, then okay, maybe give it a listen. But for the most part, you got your editor, you got your people, look and see what people are generally saying. Avoid those deep dives.
I honestly just kind of lost interest after a while. Like when the Phoebe stuff started coming out and I was getting like reviewed and stuff finally, and like both like from real reviewers and also just like Amazon reviews, getting all of those, and I was being talked about. It was fascinating. And I guess I just got bored with it after a while. A new Phoebe book will come out. People will say all the same stuff they always say about it. Most people will say, it's funny, my kid likes it. And then like a few people will be like, there's gay people in this book, I hate it or whatever. But like after a while, it's just the same thing over and over again. And so it wasn't that I decided to stop reading reviews. I said I got bored with them.
Well, sound advice. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. I read all mine. I can't help it.
Me too, Jerry. Me
You
too.
know, like I just can't help it. Now, what I can help now, okay, so if I did superhero comics,
Yeah.
like legendary, like a Superman or a Batman, I would not, because I think that the idea for those people to be meaner because you mess with Spider-Man, like I don't think I would do that. Whereas I feel safer with this middle grade graphic novel. I don't know if it's true or not. I feel like the people are nicer, except, I remember getting slammed on Goodreads and me being like the nice guy. I was like, oh, hey, I'm sorry you didn't like it, but here's my intent, figuring that, kumbaya and a group hug. And I got, it's so tacky when an author responds to you on Goodreads. And I was like, okay, delete. And then it was, I like deleted the app. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not going back. It was like 2 years before I did that because, yeah, I don't need to do that part.
That's like one of those lines that just sticks with you forever, right? You're like going to bed and you're like, I'm about to fall asleep. It's like, that's the only tacky art in your brain. You're like, ah.
Yeah. It was bad.
I have a rule.
Maestro, you're looking at the empty seat in the auditorium, sir.
Yes, absolutely.
Jerry, you're looking at the empty seat in the auditorium.
I do.
And it is stuck with you.
I think like Betsy, with your first book, it's kind of hard to resist. Like Dana was saying, like at a certain point, it becomes like repetitive. But I have my second book, Jukebox, coming out in a couple of weeks. And so I've been reading all the Goodreads reviews.
Congrats, by the way.
And my husband's just like, stop it. And I was like, I will stop as soon as the book comes out. So that's my rule. It's like, these are all the kind of early comments before it, like, it's on NetGalley. And so I'm curious, right? Like you put all these years into a book. So I'm curious, did people get it? Did they laugh? Did they enjoy this and that? And then at a certain point when it's out and there's a ton of reviews, I just stop paying attention, right? Like I haven't read a Pashmina review in probably years, right? Because it came out 4 years ago. So I think there's no right or wrong, right, with this, but I do think it's hard to resist in the beginning, right? When you're just kind of, you put your first thing out in the world, and you shouldn't feel bad about like reading stuff, but just don't let it distract you too much.
Yeah, I don't really think there is a rule about whether you do or don't read your reviews. Everybody seems to have their own preferences about it, and it's all fine.
Yeah.
As long as
to go 180 on it,
health.
or like to go 120 on it. I'm sorry, I came at this the wrong way. I should say that, like, for the audience we're reaching, like middle grade readers and folks who review middle grade stuff, they are 100% more polite, on point, kind than all the crap I dealt with. So it's really, I'm painting a much uglier picture than need be.
I will say this to that, which is when I say I don't read reviews anymore, that doesn't apply. I will read anything a kid writes.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Any
gosh,
kid who wants to
yes.
review my stuff in any capacity, I'm there, and that will never change.
I actually, if it's cool if I ask, do you guys have like a favorite review that a kid has written you about one of your stories? I love what kids say because there's always like good stuff. Can you think of any? It's okay if you can't.
There've been so many.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, because I guess there's a lot to go through, but
I can't say there's any like one, I mean, not one review, but sort of like one, a lot of times there's like one idea, one through line that a lot of kids will mention, which maybe I didn't necessarily see coming. You know, that, you know, I wrote the, you know, Hilo's an action adventure story and, you know, kid who shoots lasers out of his hands and blah, 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 you know, he's from another planet and all this. The number of kids who like enjoy that it's about friends. Tell me that, you know, they really is like, it's about, you know, like, I really like how they get along and actually I don't have a lot of bullies or jerks in my book, you know, because it's fiction. So I get to control exactly how it goes. And it's like, you know what, the things that they come up against is not going to be internal. It's going to be, you know, the outside world is coming at them. They're not fighting amongst themselves. They're just sort of there for each other. And I just found it to be fun. And kids responded to that. And
that's awesome.
You know, or kids who respond to it because a character is a particular race and they don't see that too often, as often a through line. And these are the fun, beautiful things, which, you know, in a lot of ways are just sort of gimmies. Like, well, yeah, no, of course I would do that. Like, you really like that a lot? Okay, that wasn't very hard for me to do. I'm glad you were enjoying that so much, you know, like, cool. It's nice. It's nice when they see even more than you were even putting out there. Or they tell you it's their favorite book, or they hand you a copy of your book that's completely falling apart because they've read it so much.
I like
they apologize.
Characters.
What's that?
Or draw a picture of one of your characters and send to you.
Yeah, I was gonna say
so
my
sweet.
favorite is when they like make comics in response to my comics. That's like the best review. Like, hey, I made this comic about Phoebe and Marigold, or about my characters that I made up, and then they want to show it to me, and it's like, I don't need to know anything else about what you thought about the book because it like made you want to make comics.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
And then you send that cease and desist. No.
Yeah,
Is that just me? No.
Not right away. You let them run around the track a few times, and then
send pictures of their house and let them know, like, I know what school you go to.
I think it's for me in my community, you know, definitely it's like there's not a lot of comics featuring Indian American protagonists, and so my favorite thing that happens is they read it, they love it, and they say, I want to be a graphic novelist too. And my every single time that happens, my response is, I can't wait to read your book. That's because I want more of us, you know, like it's lonely.
Totally.
And it's great. That's the best feeling.
I actually get a lot from adults who were the only kid of color in their school 20 years ago. And like, it brought tears to their eyes, like even more so than a lot of kids. You know, I got one last week of someone that like went to a school similar to mine and just vented with some of the stuff that happened to her and her parents and stuff like that. I was like, wow, that's really powerful stuff.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. Andrew, did we actually answer your question, or
Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew. So about an hour ago, you asked us something, and then we just started. And you even said it'd be great if you guys just have a conversation. Maybe you didn't expect it to go quite like this.
I think he knew.
If you want to circle us back to anything, that I guess that would be okay.
Yeah. I gotta say, we're actually approaching the end of our time, which is
I stayed up all night with these questions for you guys.
So what kind of comics you guys like?
Okay, I will ask though, just quickly here at the end, because again, we're almost out of time already. But you know, would your 8-year-old self enjoy the books that you're making right now? If you could go back in time and say this is where you end up, what kind of review would you get from yourself?
Positive, I hope, because I feel like this is sort of, this is probably everyone, at least most of us. It's exactly who I'm writing for. I'm writing for me at 8 to 10 years old, and
Yeah.
I feel like if I met 8 to 10-year-old me, there'd be a lot of things she'd be pleased about, and that would be one of them.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think for me, I would feel relief, because it's not about, oh, this is a story for boys, this is a story for girls. It's just, this is a story for us kids.
Yeah.
And growing up in a world where it was like, you're a girl, I was like, what does that even mean? I don't know. I guess so. I don't know. Reading a story where kids can just be kids, and it doesn't matter if you're playing with Barbies one minute and playing with cars the next, you're just living your best life. That's kind of, I think that's probably how I would.
I love it when little boys are into my stuff. Like,
Yeah.
because when I was that age, as a tormented, closeted trans child, I was not encouraged to like the kind of, stuff that was for girls. And I feel like kids don't care about that as much now, and it's great.
Yeah, because it's becoming so much more normal, right? Like Nidhi, like these kids coming up to me like, I want to be a graphic novelist. Like, yes, let's have more of us, right? It's just becoming more normal, more, of the norm.
I listened to this podcast once where like a guy reviewed books with his 2 sons, and they read one of my books, and he was like, they were like, did you like this? Yeah. Well, is it weird for you reading a book that's like pink and for girls? And both of the boys were like, what are you talking about?
I love it. I love it. That's great.
I had a mom send me a photo of her, they live in Iowa, white families for Iowa, and she was dressed up as Drew.
Oh.
And that was like one of the best things I've ever seen.
So sweet.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I think a lot of it, if you think about it, kind of living the dream, I mean, really, I say this all the time to kids. It's like, yeah, no, I don't live like a grown-up. I make things up and then I draw them. That's my job. And, to speak to the 8-year-old self of any of us, this is all we ever wanted to do,
Oh yeah. Forever, literally ever since I could hold a marker. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And we get to do it. And, and so much of it becomes, just the gravy of it being out in the world. I mean, we're the rest of the day, the rest of us, we're going to go back to our, our drafting tables, and we're going to, toil away on something. And then the magic happens that, a year from now, the book comes out, and some kiddos on the other side of the country we've never met will have read it and point out a panel. And like, I'm gonna get choked up. It's really, I can't even begin to tell people on a regular basis how grateful I am that I get to do this, and how grateful I am that in the last, I want to say 10 years, but I'm not even sure it's been that comics and graphic novels, and it might have to do with the loss of comic strips, so we're seeing less of them, that graphic novels that are middle grade or all ages have been coming out like crazy now. We're making more stories that are for everybody, because I've read everybody here, and no one actually is making stories for kids. We're just making the stories, and they happen to be kind of just all ages. And again, like that's, that was the dream. So grateful. It's awesome.
Privileged, definitely.
Yes.
Just very grateful.
Well said, Judd. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you want to add anything to that, Nidhi? I think we're.
No, I feel like everybody said what I was thinking. So
Great.
God, Andrew's
Can I
been
say how much I
talking
like
over
this
the whole
bunch?
time.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for letting us get a word in, Andrew.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And this is like this is like one of the best panels I've done in years. This is a really good group. I really like y'all. This is like, I mean, everybody here is doing all of it is all stories for like, for everybody, for kiddos, for everybody, but everyone we're all doing entirely different books, all different perspectives, all over the place. And the same kids could probably read it and enjoy them. That's just it just kills me.
Our books are going to be on a shelf together. Like Nidhi has them right now. Like just best
You can-
buddies. Best buddies. We're here.
It's nice. It's just
Yeah.
nice.
I also I have to say, like, one of the things that's super nice about this is, I was listening to us talking about kind of the comics that we like as kids and thinking, we get to talk about this as part of our job now.
It's pretty awesome.
So awesome. I don't know. It's kind of one of those things. It's like a gift that keeps giving,
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. What is that great quote? I think it was James Gurney who said it. It's, if you don't grow up by middle age, you don't have to.
Ooh, nice.
Yes, I made it.
I like that very much.
Yeah. Which I think describes like, the career of being a cartoonist and very well, right? Like you're living your childhood in a lot of great ways,
I literally draw a self-portrait of myself as a 9-year-old girl for a living. Only I get to ride a unicorn to school.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
I think I invented the world's greatest job.
We're glad you did. And
Yeah.
like Judd said, this was great. I only had to ask one question, and everybody hit it off.
We're all so starved for opportunities to talk about ourselves.
I know. We're all sitting here alone. Like, does anyone know I exist?
we may just have to keep this up as a weekly thing. This group will come out.
Let's do
to
it.
the hang.
I'm on board. Let's go. I can't wait for the
this-
transcript for this panel. It's just gonna say Andrew, and then all of us.
Then 11 minutes about Garfield, and then
But this is the time I would tell everybody, thanks for coming. I would have you tell everybody what your booth number is, what your signing schedule is, the rest of the convention. But I'm hoping we get to all do that sooner than we realize. So
Definitely.
thanks so much, everybody. I'm gonna stop the recording, and thanks for tuning in to Comic-Con at Home.
Thank you.
thank you, everybody.
Bye.